3 times.
What a career Napoleon has ruined, having gained so much glory. He bestowed peace on Europe, and he has not done so. Spell is broken. Alexander of Russia.
1812 had been a disastrous year for Napoleon. His invasion of Russia had led to the almost total destruction of an army of 500,000 men.
That's crazy.
Now Poland and Germany were wide open to Russian attack. Some advised Emperor Alexander that this was the time to make a favourable peace with Napoleon. Russia's own armies had been mauled, and Western Russia devastated. But Alexander was determined to see Napoleon defeated for
Why
good,
would they make peace?
to free Europe from his clutches, and avenge Moscow's destruction by taking Paris. Napoleon's allies were deserting him. Prussian troops had already agreed a truce with the Russians. Schwarzenberg's corps marched back to Austria, which assumed a policy of watchful neutrality. Napoleon had left Marshal Murat in charge of the remnants of the army, but he left for the Kingdom of Naples, hoping to cut a deal with the Allies that would let him keep his throne.
Murat abandoned Napoleon.
He was replaced by Napoleon's stepson Eugene, who'd proved himself a brave and able soldier in Russia, but was unused to independent command, and now faced odds of 4-1. As Russian forces advanced through Poland, he continued to retreat west, leaving garrisons to hold strategic fortresses, most of which were soon besieged.
Yeah, this is not going well.
On the 7th of February, Russian troops entered Warsaw unopposed. Napoleon's Polish client state, the Duchy of Warsaw, effectively ceased to exist. 3 weeks later, Russian troops entered Berlin, while Sweden joined the Allies.
See, there you go. There you go.
Sweden was ruled by Napoleon's former Marshal Bernadotte, now officially known as Crown Prince Karl Johan. Many would accuse him of betraying Napoleon, but he'd always been clear that once he became Sweden's Crown Prince, he'd pursue Swedish interests, which is what he now claimed to do. In exchange for Norway, to be taken from France's ally Denmark, and £1 million from Britain, Bernadotte agreed to join what was now the 6th coalition against France since the Revolution, with an army of 30,000 troops. 10 days later, King Frederick William of Prussia declared war on France. It followed weeks of indecision. The king was widely seen as a weak character and terrified of Napoleon, but with guarantees of Russian military support, the return of lost territory, and enormous financial and material aid from Britain, he agreed to field an army of 80,000 men. On the 17th of March, he issued a proclamation to the people of Prussia and Germany, and mein Volk, to my people, summoning them to fight for Prussia and Germany's honor, in what would soon be known as the German War of Liberation. The Prussian army had been greatly reformed since its humiliating defeat to Napoleon in 1806. A military commission headed by General von Scharnhorst had sacked nearly 200 old generals and abolished flogging, expanded recruitment, and introduced exams for officers.
Don't know what flogging means.
And overhauled training, tactics, and drill.
Okay.
When Napoleon met the new Prussian army in battle 2 months later, he remarked, "These animals have learned something." Small consolation, they'd learned most of it from him.
Yeah.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Well, that's kind of your fault, isn't it? You already had battles going on in Spain. British
Man
forces
is
are
vulnerable
already were
right
in
now.
Portugal, invading.
People are coming
As
for
his
him.
enemies massed in Germany, Napoleon was in Paris, working tirelessly to build a new army with which to face them.
Alright, what you got?
137,000 new conscripts joined the army, and laws passed to call up 100,000 more,
Okay.
while 40,000 veterans from the army in Spain,
Conscripts, whether you
16,000
want it
Marines,
or not, you have to
and
fight in army.
80,000 men of
That
the
law
National
should only
Guard,
be applied
the
if
Home
you are the
Defense
one who's
Force,
getting
were
invaded.
transferred to Germany. The new conscripts were nicknamed Marie-Louises, after Napoleon's young wife, who passed the new conscription laws in his absence. They were young and
So
raw.
it's already bad that you
Two-thirds were
don't want
teenagers,
to fight and now
and
have
there was
to
a severe
fight.
lack of
You are gonna
experienced
call now
officers and
Marie-Louise.
NCOs. In short, the countless irreplaceable veterans now lying
That
beneath
people,
Russian soil.
Marie-Louises are coming. Everybody's afraid.
There was also a critical shortage of cavalry, a crisis mocked by British satirists. It would take Napoleon longer to replace the many thousands of horses and trained horsemen
The Cossacks. I
perished
still
in
don't know.
Russia.
I still know what the Cossacks are.
When Napoleon left Paris for Germany in mid-April, the French situation was precarious. Eugène had been forced back behind the river Elbe to the fortified city of Magdeburg. Dresden, the capital of Saxony, had fallen to the Prussians. The Duchy of Mecklenburg-Schwerin became the first German state to defect from Napoleon's Confederation of the Rhine. Russian Cossacks raided as far as Hamburg, inspiring local revolts against French occupying
I feel like
forces.
I feel like the Cossacks are probably just the people that are fighting for Russia.
Meanwhile, Austria stood on the sidelines, so far declining to back either side.
Okay.
Napoleon's miraculous feat of organization meant he now had more than 200,000 troops in Germany. And the Emperor's personal magnetism was undimmed. The morale of his army was high. The Russians, on the other hand, lost their iconic commander, Field Marshal Kutuzov, to pneumonia on the 28th of April.
Damn, that's big.
His role was taken over by General Wittgenstein. Russian troops were exhausted and far from home, their army weakened by the need to contain French garrisons across Poland and Germany. Prussia and Sweden had yet to fully mobilize their strength, and Allied forces barely mustered 100,000 men. They were now heavily outnumbered by Napoleon, and the French Emperor decided to strike quickly.
Just like
He ordered
that.
Marshal Davout to Hamburg with 35,000 men to secure his northern flank. He would march against the Russian and Prussian forces converging on Leipzig to force a decisive battle. Victory would make Austria think twice about joining the Allies, allow him to rescue the 90,000 men trapped in garrisons across Germany and Poland, and re-establish his dominance over Europe.
Okay.
I guess this is not going to go according to plan. With the art of war, it was
It's kind of hard for someone like Austria-Hungary to be like, oh, what side do I pick? I don't know who's going to win.
As Napoleon advanced on Leipzig, the Allies faced a predicament. To risk battle against Napoleon's larger army, or give up Germany without a fight, a potentially devastating blow to Allied morale and any chance of winning Austria over to their cause.
They can't do that. Not after
Allied
all this.
headquarters made the
They had
bold
chance to
decision
make
I mean,
peace,
even without
to
the
attack.
cavalry,
but they didn't.
They
Right
knew
now,
most
they
of
back off.
Napoleon's army
All
was
the
made up
I mean,
of
just
raw
think that they,
conscripts.
You've got all these
Their
young
own
Tell to the
troops
world
were
that
better
Napoleon
trained
is not strong.
and had a great
Napoleon ran
superiority
away.
to
Napoleon is not
cavalry.
strong as he
and
used to be.
they have no training and a lack of officers, and
The Allies agreed
means that
that as
there's nobody there to
Napoleon
train
crossed
them.
the Saale River, they would hit his right flank before he could concentrate the full mass of his forces. The two armies were on a collision course, but Napoleon's shortage of cavalry meant he lacked information about Allied movements.
About the men on...
On the 1st of May, Marshal Bessières, commanding the cavalry in Murat's absence, was carrying out reconnaissance himself when he was hit by a cannonball, killed instantly. Bessières was the second of Napoleon's marshals to be killed in action, and like
Cannonballs are
Lannes,
terrifying.
an old comrade and trusted friend. The Allies were able to surprise Napoleon, falling on Marshal Ney's Third Corps near Lutzen. Ney's troops had to cling on in the face of a Russian and Prussian onslaught, while Napoleon rapidly redirected his other corps to fall on the enemy's flanks. At one stage, Napoleon had to personally help rally routing troops as they broke in the face of determined Prussian assaults. But on the whole, his young conscripts fought with courage.
I don't know if that's. I'm sorry to pause again. So
Despite hours of savage fighting,
boost of morale
Wittgenstein could not exploit his
seeing,
early advantage.
Like Napoleon, if you're a soldier.
As French
oh my God, it's
reinforcements
Napoleon!
arrived,
Wait a
the
second, that's
battle turned
Napoleon.
against
What's he
him.
doing so close to the
There you go.
so close to the
Dusk,
battle? Are
the
we
Allies
screwed?
were
So
forced
it's
to
a
break
proper
off the engagement. Though they'd inflicted around 22,000 casualties, losing just half as many men.
Okay.
General von Scharnhorst, mortally wounded, was among
Wait a
them.
minute, I don't think this has happened in the past.
Crucially, Napoleon's lack of cavalry meant he was unable to pursue the enemy, who retreated in good order. Expecting the Prussians to fall back on Berlin, Napoleon sent Marshal Ney in pursuit, while he continued east.
Okay.
But the Allied army stayed together, withdrawing to a defensive position at Bautzen, deliberately close to the Austrian border,
Uh-oh.
hoping to entice Schwarzenberg to intervene, and daring Napoleon to violate Austrian neutrality.
Wow.
Neither
smart.
happened. Instead, Napoleon ordered Ney to swing south to fall on the Allies' northern flank, while he launched a frontal assault to pin them in place.
Here he comes.
That has his word.
Never count this man out.
The battle lasted 2 days, as French infantry struggled forward against the Prussian and Russian lines. But a misunderstanding over Ney's orders caused a delay that allowed the Allies to narrowly escape Napoleon's trap.
Damn.
Once more, the Allies fought with great determination and inflicted many more losses than they suffered.
God damn, again, look
There
at
were more
that.
casualties during
more
the
than
pursuit,
twice now.
including the
You can
next
see
day,
the new
General
recruits.
Duroc, Grand
It's
Marshal of
showing
the
that
palace,
they are just
responsible for
He's just
Napoleon's
throwing
personal
bodies there.
arrangements,
Winning these battles,
and
I
his
guess.
closest surviving friend. Riding with Napoleon's staff, a freak cannon shot ricocheted off a tree and disemboweled him.
Napoleon's got
His
a lot of
slow,
homies
painful
that
death
will just ride and
deeply
die for
upset
him.
Napoleon.
Literally ride and die for him.
It ricocheted off a
The Emperor continued his pursuit to Breslau, once again hindered by his lack of experienced cavalry, while Oudinot was sent north to take Berlin, but was held at Luckau by von Bülow's Prussian corps. On the 2nd of June, with both sides strained to breaking point, neutral Austria proposed a ceasefire, which, to the surprise of many, Napoleon accepted.
Wow, interesting.
damn. At once you are
yeah,
such a
Sorry,
powerhouse
like,
that
like stars.
you
How
didn't
did
have
Austria
to
dig in?
get
I actually didn't
strong-armed by
expect
anyone.
Napoleon to be
You are the
winning
one
battles.
who's telling people what to do.
The armistice of Plaswitz would last more than 2 months, a period of intense diplomacy
that means.
and military
That
mobilization
star is
by
setting.
both sides. Napoleon wanted time to rebuild his cavalry, a shortage of which had allowed the Allies to escape twice. But he also wanted to keep Austria on side, which he feared might join the Allies with 200,000 troops, even though Emperor Francis I was now his father-in-law,
Yeah, he married a
since
daughter.
Napoleon's marriage to his daughter,
right.
Marie-Louise, in 1810.
Awkward.
Austrian Foreign Minister Clemens von Metternich, who'd become one of 19th century Europe's most influential statesmen, now took center stage. Metternich wanted peace and to see Austria restored as a great European power, which meant Napoleon contained, but not crushed, which would hand too much power to Russia. In June, he travelled to Dresden to ask Napoleon to make concessions, while promising the Allies that if he did not, Austria would join them. But Napoleon dismissed Metternich's terms out of hand. He would not return the Illyrian provinces to Austria, agree to the repartition of Poland, or the breakup of the Confederation of the Rhine. All were out of the question. Napoleon famously threw his hat to the ground in fury. "Peace and war lie in your Majesty's hands," Metternich is said to have warned him. "Today you can still make peace. Tomorrow it may be too late."
France.
But Napoleon preferred war to what he called a humiliating peace.
I mean, yeah, obviously, you see his point, man. He went to Russia with a
I mean, I
$500,000
kind of get where
army,
Napoleon's
lost all of
coming from
them.
on
Does
this
he mean
because it kind of is almost
That
like
whenever an
defeat,
emperor
like a
attacks the
defeat,
person, that the emperor's side is...
So I get his point of
Is
view
it-
on that.
On the 12th of August 1813, Austria joined the Sixth Coalition and declared war on France. The Allies now had a numerical advantage of 3-2, and a new strategy, the Trachenberg Plan.
It's not just
Recognizing
3-2.
Napoleon's genius, the Allies
most
would
of
avoid battle
army
with
is
the
in
Emperor.
new
Sorry,
and
Napoleon, you're
instead
good, but you're not that good.
Allies are not.
threaten his
And
flanks
they are more
and
of
wear
them.
down French
Not
forces.
just that, look at him.
Until
Napoleon
it was
is here
time
and
to
he's
close in
surrounded.
for the kill. Over the next few months, the coalition would also receive massive material support from Britain,
But
including
yeah, there is that.
£8 million in silver and gold coin, 200 cannon with transport, 120,000 firearms,
I'm sorry.
18 million rounds of ammunition, 23,000 barrels of gunpowder, 30,000 swords and sabres,
Like,
150,000 uniforms, 175,000 pairs of boots,
95,000
1.5 million pounds of beef, biscuit and flour,
Damn.
28,000 gallons of rum and brandy.
That's the main
There
thing
we
right
go.
there.
Total
Yeah, definitely gonna need
value
that.
Got the last
What else do you
one.
really need
in 1813
off of that
was
list?
11.3
How much
million
worth today?
pounds. Today, worth around $500 million.
Damn.
Wow.
Napoleon, meanwhile, had turned Dresden into a major supply depot and strengthened his cavalry arm, though it remained a pale shadow of its glorious past. Murat returned to lead it, his secret approach to the Allies having been rebuffed.
He came back?
But when news arrived of King Joseph's disastrous defeat to Wellington's Anglo-Spanish-Portuguese army,
Damn.
the Battle of Victoria, Napoleon had to send Marshal Soult, one of his best commanders, to
Oh,
salvage the
Suchet. I
situation.
like Suchet a lot.
There's still Spain situation going on.
On the 15th of August, Napoleon left Dresden and advanced against what he considered the most urgent
What is
threat,
he doing, man?
the
He's
joint
already surrounded
Prussian-Russian
by
army of
look at that,
Silesia,
everything.
commanded
Russia,
by General
Austria.
Gebhard
He's
von
gonna
Blücher,
chance for them
soon
to
to win
trap
the
him.
nickname
If he goes
Marshal
here, they
Vorwärts,
can just move inside and
Marshal
trap
Forwards,
him. What is he
his
doing? He
aggressive
can't just go
leadership.
in.
But Blücher followed the new plan and retreated when he learned of Napoleon's advance. Napoleon then received news from Marshal
There you go,
Saint-Cyr,
see?
holding
Of course
Dresden
they are
with
gonna
20,000 men.
close it in.
That
They want to
Schwarzenberg's
trap
gigantic
Napoleon.
army
Napoleon
of
just went straight
Bohemia
ahead. They
was
can just come
approaching,
inside.
and the city and its
Closing
supplies
on its
were in
flank.
danger. Napoleon left Marshal MacDonald to keep an eye on Blücher and raced back to Dresden, sending Van Damme's First Corps to threaten Schwarzenberg's communications. By the time the Allied assault began, enough reinforcements had arrived to fight off the attack. The next day, despite being heavily outnumbered, Napoleon ordered a counterattack. Struggling through mud and heavy rain, Marshal Murat's advance, supported by Victor's Second Corps, broke the Allied left flank and took 13,000 prisoners. The Allies had suffered a disastrous defeat because they'd ignored their own rule. Don't take on Napoleon in battle.
God damn, look at
But
that.
news soon arrived that turned the
Now I
situation
understand
on
the
its
meaning
head.
of the...
Marshal Oudinot had resumed his advance on Berlin with 66,000 men. but in 3 days of heavy combat around Grossbeeren, he was defeated by Bernadotte's Army of the North. Some of the most savage fighting was between Napoleon's Saxon allies and von Bülow's Prussians, 2 German states that for now remained on opposing sides. 3 days later, at the Katzbach River, Blücher inflicted a crushing defeat on Marshal MacDonald, driving some French troops into the river itself.
Okay.
MacDonald lost
Jumping off the
30,000 men, 3 Eagles and 100 guns, for Blücher's 22,000
Imagine how
casualties.
brutal the fighting is at this stage of the war. Almost.
Finally,
3 days after Napoleon's victory at Dresden, as Van Damme's corps pursued the Allies, it became trapped in wooded valleys around Kulm and was overrun.
It's getting
General
dramatic
Van
now.
Damme himself was dragged from his horse by Cossacks, as he and 10,000 of his men were made prisoner. Napoleon sent Ney to take over from Oudinot, who engaged Bülow's Prussian corps at Dennewitz. The Prussians, fighting to save Berlin, held their own until Russian and Swedish reinforcements arrived to turn the battle decisively in the Allies' favour. Ney's retreat became a rout, with the loss of another 22,000 men. Napoleon's brilliant victory at Dresden had been completely overturned in just 10
He can't
days.
do everything himself.
The Allied plan was working. Napoleon became increasingly frustrated as Allied armies withdrew wherever he advanced, and advanced wherever he was not. Teenage conscripts were exhausted by
That
constant
is the
marching.
best
A lot of
thing
his
Allied
friends are
forces
starting,
have now.
starting to
Napoleon
die,
comes
so
just
he's
retreat
using
and
people
try to trap him
be
so
in
he
certain
goes
places
back
for him, so
because he
knows
can't have his
everyone
flank
knows exactly where he's at,
deserted.
and wherever he's not, he's
Russian and Prussian light troops were now operating behind Napoleon's army, harassing his communications with France.
How do they get back there?
Many of Napoleon's marshals advised him to pull back to the River Rhine,
That would make sense.
but Napoleon wasn't giving up Germany without a fight.
Yeah, because
And it's just
after Russia, if he
at
goes
this
back
point he's
from
just
here,
gonna fight to
he's
the
already
bitter
done,
end.
man.
It seems like he's
Even
not
if he
going
doesn't
down
lose
without
by that much, he's already
losing
done. People will
everything.
We're not
see
even
him
at
as
Leipzig
defeated.
yet.
he's just trying to chip
By
away
October
at these little
1813,
battles.
Napoleon faced a third of a
On the
million
Dresden,
Allied troops in
on
Germany,
Leipzig.
converging on him from 3 directions. 900 miles away, Field Marshal Wellington was crossing the Bidassoa River into France,
Two front.
the first enemy army on French soil in nearly 20
British attack.
years. While the Kingdom of Bavaria, a French ally since the days of Austerlitz, had secretly agreed to switch sides and would declare war on France on the 14th of October.
Of course, that's going to happen. They sense the weakness.
Napoleon planned to defend the line of the River Elbe. But the arrival of General Bennigsen's reserve Russian army freed up Blücher, who suddenly marched to join forces with Bernadotte and forced his way across the Elbe at Wartburg.
I think he's gonna end up having to
Napoleon
retreat all
went
the way back
north
to
with
Paris at this point.
150,000 men, seeking the decisive battle that would change his fortunes. But once more, Blücher narrowly escaped him.
Staying away.
Then came news from Murat, who'd been left with 67,000 men to cover Schwarzenberg. The enemy had bypassed Dresden and was heading for Leipzig.
Interesting.
If the city fell, Napoleon would be cut off from France. Once more, he was advised to fall back to the Rhine.
Say.
But instead, Napoleon ordered all his forces to concentrate at Leipzig.
Here we
He
go.
would risk everything in one great battle to decide the fate of his empire and the fate of Europe.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, lots of
Thank you
turns
to all
in
our
this video.
Patreons.
Nothing
Now that I'm like
went
super
away.
invested into this
Wow.
series,
But I
like
definitely
I
think
want
it's
more and more
really
to watch the next
cool.
episode. Maybe I will.
Point.
You know,